That it does. The local legislative body or the planning board can review the growth tier maps.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Ms. Sebos.
The local legislative body, that would be this Board of County Commissioners or the planning board, can entertain that.
The planning board never addressed this particular tier map. It was this.
They would have a hearing. This is only the...
It's at the option of the Board of Commissioners if you wish to pass it, as it were, to the Planning Commission.
Commissioners, is that a motion, Commissioner Davis?
No, I just want discussion on it. Is the process that they would just hold a hearing?
The process would be that they would hold the hearing.
And they would make recommendations back to the Board of Commissioners. I just passed my copy of the law to Commissioner Collins.
My own personal feeling is, since this particular tier map in question was never addressed by the Planning Commission, it was only addressed by the working group, which then presented it to us, and then it was passed 3-2 a couple of weeks ago, that the public hearing be held by the commissioners.
Probably makes sense that it's held by the commissioners, but I just want to make sure that we're
That's
fully
my rationale.
advised of the law, that we're fully advised of the law. And it doesn't matter whether they heard it or not, they would just hold a hearing.
And make the recommendations.
All right.
Okay, so then, are we in agreement that this public hearing will be before the Board of Commissioners on May 13th, Ms. Ferguson, at 6 p.m.? We haven't gotten that far yet. At 6 p.m., late enough that people who are commuters would have a chance to
I
get
would
here?
go 6:30.
6:30? Is everyone okay with 6:30? Okay, 6:30 p.m. on May 13th.
But the only concern I have is that I am going to make a motion for further legal advice and consultation and some of the issues that Ruben mentioned. So I just want to make sure we have enough time.
I believe that will be sufficient time.
Could we be clear on what those legal questions are? I know you've said that, but could we summarize that? Would you mind summarizing those questions?
I definitely want an analysis of the letter, of the concerns that were mentioned in the letter.
The things that are raised by Secretary Hall.
That were raised by Secretary Hall.
Okay.
Well, a lot of it's his opinion, correct?
Yeah, it is just his
It's
opinion.
opinionated.
Anything else, Commissioner Collins, besides an analysis of the letter? No more? Okay. Ms. Holtz, did you have a question?
I was just going to read, perhaps it's helpful to focus on the further research. If I read, if the Department of Planning comments on any of the tiers or on an area within one of the tiers, the local legislative body or the planning board shall hold at least one public hearing on the comments by the Department of Planning.
And so,
Be on the comment.
right, so that's important for our advertisement. That's important for all of us to keep in mind, that the public hearing would be on the comments. So back to what Commissioner Davis is saying, whether or not it's his opinion or what have you, that's what the law requires.
I have a question.
And then that's it? What happens after that?
I have a question about the comments of whom?
The Department of Planning.
The letter.
But is his letter considered the comments of the Department of Planning?
Yes,
Yes.
he's the secretary.
I understand, I know that,
Yeah.
but
I believe that the way it is that the
he
letter...
alone makes the decision, excuse me, but he alone is the sole arbiter of whether it's appropriate or not?
It doesn't require any specific process, and there may be a rule of procedure
That's a good question. I mean,
that the department has adopted. We can look into that.
would you find out whether
Sure.
there is a process, or is he the sole arbiter? I mean,
We can certainly investigate whether or not there is a process. I was
What-
merely
yeah.
relying on the
I
portion.
believe that's vague.
Okay. What else do we
Sorry
have?
about that interruption.
No, I just said we have a public hearing, and then about the comments, then what happens?
If the planning board addresses the comments, what they're going to be doing is making a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners that the tiers be changed or that the adopted tiers remain
If the
unchanged.
planning?
That would be if it were relegated to the planning board. What I understand is that this board has gone ahead to have the commissioner, this board is going to hear the public hearing.
I'm sorry, County Attorney Theobald. So the language when they say planning department, are they referring to the county or are they referring to the state?
They're referring to the county. I read this as referring to the county, as the internal process of the county.
Because actually, originally I actually thought the way that was interpreted that the state would be holding it, but
Commissioner Rucci, has your question been answered?
That just don't make no sense.
Do you
Yeah,
have
no,
another question?
she answered it, no.
All right.
no.
Okay, then I believe that's everything we have under new business. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Robinson. Is there a second?
Should we have a planning board here with us at that meeting now? If they're going to hear it too, should we all hear it together? Just throw it out there.
There's nothing in the law to provide for that. It does say that either the Board of Commissioners, the legislative body, or the planning board shall hold at least one public hearing.
I know, but it goes from us to them.
The Board of Commissioners can designate, as we said earlier, can designate the planning board to take the obligation to hold the hearing and then make recommendations back to the board. Or the board
So
can
they'll
hold
get
the
our
hearing
comments now.
itself.
We'll have it and they'll get our comments, correct? Is that what you're saying?
Pardon?
They'll get the comments from it, from the hearing.
If the
Planning
planning commission holds the hearing, you would get their comments.
We've already
Right.
voted for the Board of Commissioners.
Yeah,
to
we already
hold the
voted with
hearing.
commissioners. No, they'll get our comments though now, and then they'll have a, you just said it had to go to planning commission.
No,
We can handle it after the public hearing.
right, you could certainly make them available to the planning commission, but they
No, but
have
didn't a
no...
minute ago, I said, what happens after that? You said it goes to the planning commission.
No, it doesn't.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question.
I must have misunderstood your question.
Okay, all right.
I think you were speaking of it if it had gone to the planning commission. Once we have the
Exactly.
public hearing, we have the opportunity to hear from our citizens.
All right, no, I
Then,
understood all that. I thought that after we have our hearing, what happened, they said it goes back to the planning commission. That's the part I didn't understand.
but I think, unless I've forgotten what I read, Ms. Theobald, County Attorney Theobald, after the public hearing, the commissioners then, after listening to our citizens, we then can continue on with the same map that currently exists. There's nothing about the public hearing process that says that this body has to change this map. The law simply requires that we have the hearing.
That's
And
correct.
so after the public hearing, we may hear things from the public that make us say, we don't want this map to go forward, and that we accept the comments made by Secretary Hall, and we're going to comply with those comments. Or we could simply allow that map to stand. And so that's, I think, the piece that you were looking
Thank you for clarifying that.
And I would like to
Commissioner
add
Robinson?
one other thing before we get a second on my motion to adjourn. Can we make a request that Secretary Hall appear at the public hearing so that we can't have to guess what's in his head? And if anybody has any questions of him, he's here.
I don't need his opinion.
Or Maryland
are we
Department
gonna
of
vote on
Planning
it?
staff.
We're going to vote.
Well, right now, we have a motion with no second to adjourn, so
All right, I withdraw my request, reiterating my motion to adjourn.
Mr. Secretary Hall and his staff are
They'll either
welcome to
be here or
come
they won't.
anytime. We don't
Right.
need to
Okay.
make a
But
special
I just
request.
ask, if he represents one distinct side, so if he is going to be allowed to speak, I would ask my colleagues that we at least have on the other side, which is the council that we've been consulting the entire time.
Well, that's opening a can of worms. but
Yeah,
you're-
that
but-
sure
But
is.
you're welcome to have him speak.
Absolutely. I mean,
Well, I just want to be
all
clear that he
sides
is
should be
not
presented.
speaking for this board. If he wants to come in,
well, neither should Secretary Hall be speaking for this board.
Secretary Hall is the secretary of a state agency. Warren Rich is being paid for by this board.
We run the county, Candace. That has been my entire problem with this entire process. Secretary Hall has single-handedly
Commissioner
usurped the
Davis,
whole
if I
planning
might.
commission
Just let her
process.
finish. Excuse me, let Commissioner Davis finish. Go ahead.
I'm finished.
Well, I'm just going to say, it's a public hearing. Anybody who wishes to
Right.
speak can
As long as
speak.
they're civil.
So, I mean, if
Okay.
you want somebody to speak, just have them sign up.
I just don't want to pay for them to speak. Is there a motion to adjourn? We have a
I've made that motion.
Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Collins.